Before we move on to hardware and software items, I want to describe a few more things that you can do at the project level. We already talked about system requirements, and I showed that in detail. So at the system level, at this project level as we call it, another thing you can do is look at problem reports. Now this is really useful to do at the project level. A project, remember, is comprised of numerous, one or more, hardware and software items that basically are the implementation of this system or project. So from a rolled up version, you can take a look at the problem reports associated with those items that comprise the system. So let's take a quick look at this. We click on that and I say I want to be shown the problem reports. We are put into a list of the problem reports. You saw lists earlier. This is the same kind of thing that we saw earlier. One object per row. In this case, the object is a problem report. With pertinent information, you always have your ID, title, description. In this case, we can actually see if it's associated with a specific hardware or software item. If that field is blank like it is here, this problem report number 2 would be associated with the entire project itself. It's really good to be able to see the problem reports and how they're associated with the individual items, because perhaps a problem report filed by one team developing a hardware item, maybe it's an interface problem, and that might have an impact on the software as well, for example. The project manager at the project level can take a look at this and see if there's any of those links between the problem reports that might cause the different teams to have to take some kind of action. But in this case, we've got 2 problem reports in our problem reports list. The first one is a problem with the PACT. It's in the control board hardware item. The second one is something affiliated with the system level specification that it's not clear regarding the safety issues. So these show up in our list. We're going to take a deeper dive into problem reports when we look at the individual items and what kind of actions and activities you perform at that level. So right now I'm going to skip most of that and go back to our project itself. The other thing I wanted to show is the same kind of idea here. This is a roll-up where we're going to be taking a look at the roll-up of the review status. So reviews are held at the item level, but at the project level, the project manager might want a status of how far along things are, and the reviews are a great way to indicate this. So there's multiple items, which we'll see in a moment in a future demo. There's multiple items that comprise this project. In this case, the item that is farthest along is the hardware item called the control board. And in this case, there's 3 different reviews that are currently in process. It looks like we're at the planning stage. So we're reviewing the PACT, we're reviewing the HCMP document, and we are also reviewing on the process side, the transition to hardware planning review. So these 3 reviews are in process, and there's information about them in terms of how many checklist items there are that are passing or not passing. In this case, the only review that's currently passing is the review of the PACT itself. Again, I'm going to come back and do reviews in much more detail when we look at the items, because the reviews are held at the item level. So let's quickly go back to our avionics passenger counter project and look at the final thing, navigation item or activity that you can do at the project level, and that is archives. So we don't have any archives for our project right now because we're at the very early stages of it. But what you can do, what an archive is basically a snapshot of the entire project, all of the data, everything, including the version of the tool that was used on it. So at the end of a project, typically you would want to take this snapshot and store all of that information. And we can do that with PACT. We can do a long-term data storage to meet airworthiness requirements, and we would do that through this archive process. If we wanted to take an archive or create a new archive, we would do that by clicking New Archive. We would give it a name, an identifier, a description. It would capture the version of the tool that we were using, and it would keep it under version control. So we could create that archive, but in this case I'm not going to, because it's not a very good practice to take multiple archives of your design, because it does end up capturing a lot of data. I'm going to go back to our project, and the next demo we're going to take a deep dive down into the hardware and software items and what we do at that level. So stay with me.